Okay, welcome. Good morning, everyone. We're so excited to have you all here today. I'm Allie, Director of Payments and Partnerships here at JENIE. Thank you so much for being with us. Whether you're fully present or juggling emails and Slack messages along the way, we see you and we appreciate you taking the time. Today's session is about something that has truly reshaped hospitality and marketing and continues to evolve at light speed, pretty much daily. Creator collaborations and content strategy. But our approach isn't a fluffy, let's talk about strategic, measurable, and revenue-driven approaches. Today's webinar is presented by JENIE, a fintech-powered online travel agency built on peer recommendations. We're planning to explore how creators, storytelling, and social media interact with real revenue and brand trust. And having been on the operations and sales side for many, many years, this is one of my favorite topics because it sits at the crossroads of hospitality, psychology, creativity, and business. And for most hospitality leaders out there, I know this is where you live daily, and sometimes before your second cup of coffee. So let's dive in and meet our awesome panelists. I'm really excited. We've brought together some voices that don't just talk about this space, but they shape it daily. Let me introduce you to our awesome guests. First, we have Erika, entrepreneur and brand builder. Tannya, hospitality content strategist and travel creator. And Raquel, master content creator. And I love this mix of perspectives because they represent brand, strategy, and creator. So I want to hear from each of you to give your own personal introduction. Let's start with Erika. I'd love to hear where you're joining us from. And if you could describe your relationship with travel in one word, what would it be?
All right, so I'm joining you from Healdsburg. We are in Northern California, wine country, just 1 hour north of the Golden Gate Bridge. So that's where I'm here from today. And I would say my one word for travel is aspirational. I am a mom, I have 2 kids, and I kind of see it as this bridge of like who I want to become, especially if I'm watching reels and videos and I see a video of a mother and she's maybe at this really great resort that has this kids club and she's walking the kid there. Like, that's aspirational to me, and I can see that. I can see myself enjoying that moment when life is so busy and I want to be more present with my kids and maybe a little more refined. So I would say aspirational.
Love that. Tannya?
Yeah. Hi, folks. Thank you all for joining. I'm Tannya, and I'm joining from San Francisco. And my one word for my relationship with travel, I'd say I'm going to cheat a little bit and say it's curiosity and exploration, because I focus a lot on travel photography. My audience is really looking for opportunities to get out of their daily 9 to 5 and just explore what's out there in the world. And that's sort of the feeling that I want to bring to them. And I really just want to show folks, hey, the planet is freaking beautiful and let's go out there and explore it. So those would be my words.
I love that. Raquel?
Hi, everybody. I'm Raquel. I'm owner of Watch Me Sip, and I'm right down the road from Erika. I'm in Windsor, which is 5 minutes from Healdsburg, so I live in beautiful Sonoma County. And I would say I have 2 words, too. I couldn't choose just one. Passion and essential, because for me, I think a lot of my travel is driven by my passion, which is wine. And then for me, it's also essential to be happy to always be traveling.
Yeah.
I love that. And I think that's a good reminder. We all need those extra boosts of special and aspirational in our day-to-day lives. I've heard the statistic over and over in the industry that people are actually happier when they're booking their vacation than we're actually on that said vacation. And having been on the operations and sales side for a lot of years, I always try to keep that in the back of our mind to make sure that our processes kind of reflected that. So moving on to the topic at hand today, I want to talk through some statistics to kind of ground this conversation in reality a little bit. There's a few standout polls that have came out over the last couple of years, which I don't think will be shocking to anybody joining us on this panel, but are still very interesting and really ground this conversation in reality. So 81% of travelers use social media to research and validate their decisions before booking. 60% of travelers book after viewing on social media. And this one, again, not surprise to those on the panel, but I think maybe surprise to much of our audience. 88% of those booking trust influencer recommendations, which again is really telling because it's not about how the brands build up trust. I think it's how the people build up trust and what creates a genuine connection for those working with your brand. Also, recently enough, there have been a lot of statistics came out that center around people unfollowing accounts, and 42% of the folks surveyed in a recent poll said that they unfollowed brands for overposting, which again, I think a lot of us can comment on in this group. It's more about posting intentionally and not necessarily consistently. Like gone are the days of the 4,000 hashtags and the posting every day on the day. But I think what we want to dive in today is talking a little bit more about how important it is to have genuine content when you're working on behalf of a property to get those audience and to convert bookings. So first official question, I'd love to hear from each of you all. Most recently, is there a post or a collaboration or a project that you worked on that was effortless, was something you're really proud of once it was final and complete, but was just maybe total chaos or just crazy behind the scenes? Tannya, I know you just recently had a partnership with a certain brand on this. We'll jump to you first.
Yeah, for sure. So I was doing some work with a global automotive brand for their luxury electric vehicle launch a while back. And I think the biggest thing was that they were not as conscious of how much time it took to create good content. So what happened was they wanted us to produce a bunch of photos and video content showcasing this new vehicle. And they gave us an hour to pick up the car, drive to a location and scout the location, take all of those photos and videos, and then drive back in time to return the car, which if it's a new location that I've never been to, and I don't know what the roads are going to look like, I don't know if it's going to showcase like beautiful mountains in the background, or if it's just going to be like residential houses, that's really hard for me to make sure that I'm portraying what the brand wants me to portray in the right way. And so it was a bit of a mess. You drive around trying to like find the best spots you can as soon as possible. And then once you're there, you have to quickly capture everything in about 20 minutes, because then 20 minutes later, you got to drive back. It created great videos and the brand was super happy. But I think that's maybe number one thing to think about, at least in that context, is just, hey, it takes more than just, it's more than just clicking a few photos and calling it a day. There's a lot of sort of prep work and sort of effort that goes behind that. So I'd say that's one of my stories on that front.
Yeah, I think it's easy for us all to forget because so much of content creation and social media kind of comes out as this beautiful snapshot, stop moment in time. But really, to get to that point, it takes a lot of takes, it takes a lot of effort, it takes a lot of forethought. And it's important, I think, for the hotels and short-term rentals who are wanting to work with influencers to kind of keep that in mind and have realistic expectations for how they're setting you up for success. Raquel, any stories on this? Is this front something that you just were super proud of, but maybe just behind the scenes was a little bit crazy?
Yeah, this wasn't a partnership per se, but I think for a lot of my content in the past year that has gone like viral were things that I thought, should I even post this? And I did. That's the content that did really well. So my lesson to people is just post the content, especially if it's real, if it's human and authentic and raw, because that's what people are wanting nowadays. So I happened to be at a really large wine tasting here in Sonoma County. There's a really big spittoon in the middle of the room, and my intrusive thoughts took over, and I took a video of myself spitting my wine out with a caption that said, "The only way to get through wine tasting all day." And 20 million views later, it was a lesson in just post the content.
Yeah. I think that's a good reminder too, just to how authenticity is very much appreciated these days, because we're just being inundated with the constant, refined, curated messaging.
Yeah.
Erika, with your businesses, oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Oh no, I was gonna say, and that is the only way to get through wine tasting all day. You have to use this too.
Totally. Very practical.
You'll be passed out by 2 p.m.
Yeah. What about
I think for me,
yeah, what do you work on?
Yeah, I wish I had like a specific story, but I would almost say this feels like the swanning effect. And I feel like this is any brand, business, hotel, anyone can see this, where it's like you're a swan, you're on top of the water, you're effortless, you're gliding, and then you go underneath the water and like you are paddling so fast, it is chaotic. And I always think of, you don't want anyone else to feel the ripple effect. So like Tannya said, like she's on maps, where am I going? No, when everyone's looking at those videos of that video, like they're not seeing that. And I think this is just part of the evolution of like the industry we're in. I don't think it's ever going to be perfect. So I think for brands and creators, just to learn that like pivoting is a real thing and not to get flustered. But yeah, sorry, I just want to share the swan effect. I feel like I use that term at least once a month.
No, it's a very good reminder.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of swan effect happening in my office between notes and lighting and rearranging my desk 3 times this morning. So I totally
I'm swanning.
Yeah, totally swanning. Let's shift gears a little bit, because I think there's definitely some GMs and directors of sales in our audience who would love to hear from your perspective as content creators and influencers. Talk to me about best practices when it comes to approaching a creator partnership. What do you think hotels or other travel partners maybe underestimate or misunderstand when entering a collaboration with an influencer? Raquel, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I would say I have 2 things that are really important. Is one, you're working with the creator because they are creative, so allow them to be creative at what they do. They know their audience best, and so as a brand, of course, there's certain brand messaging or points you want to hit, which you can give in a brief to the creator. But again, let go of some control and allow them to interpret your property as they do through their creative lens. And then 2, always go in with clear expectations. So whatever creator you're working with, make sure that there's a joint understanding on what the actual deliverables are and what you can expect in return on both sides, just so that nobody is leaving frustrated or feeling like it wasn't a fair partnership. So I'd say always just be really clear up front on what your goals are, as a property, and then what the actual end deliverables look like.
Yeah, I wanted to quickly add to that as well. If there are certain pieces of brand messaging, or if there are specific, seasonal moments or things like that you do want to highlight, it is helpful to communicate that to the creator so that they're aware of that. So if there's a really great new dish at your restaurant that you want to highlight, or there is an event nearby that you want to sort of weave into their story, that's where, if you have creative briefs or you want to discuss the type of content that is being created ahead of time, becomes really, really helpful to make sure that you're getting the content that you need, and that the creator has some time to sort of think about how to weave the story in a way that resonates most with their own audience. So I would definitely think about that if there are specific perspectives that you want the content to speak to.
And I think what I just heard you say too is like creativity takes a little bit of time. So I know on the hotel side, we live, because we're working around deadlines and guests and employees and a million different, I call it kind of death by details, but getting ahead of it as much as you can, even if it's a quick email, a quick text, whatever the mode of communication is, a few days ahead of time or even a week, so that those creative juices can start flowing. I think that definitely sets it up well.
I feel like as a brand too, I would say it's everything Tannya and Raquel said is like spot on. And it's easy, like you said, to work a little bit ahead of time. Hop on. There's so many great apps and programs like Canva, and just kind of start what that deck might look like. And it can evolve over time, and you can link reels that worked really well for you. But like you said, if there's a restaurant tasting coming up, even verbiage like And pronunciation, like, is a big one. Like, this is how we pronounce our restaurant and or the hotel, and this is like the town we're in. You know, it can often happen. People are up here where we are, and they're referring to Napa. Napa is an hour and 20 minutes away. We're not in Napa, so it's just, you can give them those details, but you have to let them, like you said, they're creative. Like, let them shine and let them do their thing. But the best thing you can do is just give them like a little bit of a toolkit.
Nice. The pronunciation thing is real. I was working with a tourism board in Nevada, and I had never really considered that it's not pronounced Nevada, it's Nevada. And well, I ended up correcting it in the reel, but it was very, I wish I had known that before I started my voiceovers and everything.
Yeah, little things like that.
Yeah.
And I think it's easy too when it's your property or your business and you live it inside and out every day, right? But then it's those simpler things that are part of your day-to-day when somebody's new and approaching it from a new lens. It's almost like relating it back to like onboarding a new employee, right? Like, where would you start? Where would you make sure that they're set up for success? What like basic pieces of information are going to make sure that they have a really solid launch pad to create something that's going to be meaningful and authentic and in line with your brand. Okay, this is one where shockingly, this even still confuses me. I've been around the block a few times when it comes to marketing and social media, but every now and then I see something or somebody do something cool or different in this space, and then it shifts gears and like, does the story go here? Does the thing go here? Like, what is the thing? So talk to me about how in your different collaborations in your personal accounts, when you work with other brands, how do you use the different tools that are built into Instagram? And there's even, threads and all these other things they keep adding. How do you think about those things? What are they important? Do you think they make a difference when it comes to driving revenue specifically, or helping that hotel continue to increase their authenticity with their brand? Tannya, curious your thoughts.
Yeah, for sure. So I think some of the folks on the call may already know this, but for me, for sure, reels are definitely about reach and awareness. So if I'm ever trying to get a piece of content out to the masses, like reels are still the most effective way to do that. Posts for me are really about, so especially because with reels, I do a lot of photography, and photography, you can put them in reel format, but it obviously functions better as a post. So for me, that's where sort of the brand building piece of, hey, I'm a travel creator and these are the types of photos and the types of places I take you to, that's where posts and carousels can really come into play. That being said, though, we have seen, at least in the travel space, a lot more reach coming from posts and carousels as well, if you're framing it more in terms of, as an example, like the 5 best places to visit in Southern California in the winter, or like when it's raining, and it's sort of very specific, actionable, or sort of mini guides, or sometimes I call them like mini blogs. If you have them formatted in that way, they also can get much higher reach than they previously could. So, the algorithm changes a lot, so we're still experimenting with what's the best way to work with posts and what's the best way to work with reels. But so far, still, reels tend to be the most high reach, and posts tend to be more for communicate with your audience and establish your brand. And that's how I tend to use them.
Raquel, anything to add, or things that have worked well for you on this front?
Yeah, I would say most of, I guess my audience growth has come from Reels, just simply because Instagram is continuing to push those in the Explore page. So the more engaged your Reel is, the more it will be open to new audiences, the new people. So that I use as more of a awareness tool, whereas a post I look at more as like, okay, I have this audience here. How can I provide valuable content to them in another way that's continuing to nurture the relationship? So as Tannya said, these are almost like a mini ebook where people want to stay within their app anymore. They don't want to be directed a lot of times outside of that. So how can you provide almost like a travel guide, or like the best wineries in Russian River Valley is one I did recently that did really well, and is creating something that's super savable so that somebody can go back to that and say, okay, I'm now in Healdsburg, let me reference this, almost as a certain type of valuable guide. At least has been really successful for me. And those posts that have text on each of the slides, which is like telling the story or providing the really valuable piece of the content that's overlaying the imagery, is what I found to be most successful.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
I know, Erika, you have a couple with your specific brands, like how you organize this. And
we're all on the same page. I would say reels are about like energy. That's where you discover. It's where you want to be that person. Like I said in the very beginning, I'm like, I want to feel how that mother is feeling right now walking with her daughter. Like you can feel that vibe in a reel. Whereas like a static post or carousel, I feel like that's where you find like the little details of like, oh, I'm going to this restaurant and they mention a pop-up dinner. Where can I find that? Like it may not be on stories anymore. And I feel like you can find a lot of the details. So kind of like you mentioned, like the little blog or like the little, any type of text format would probably live best on a grid. And I feel like there's a lot of ways that you can take content, produce it in a reel, and then you can also use it again and kind of reformat it for your post as well.
Nice.
There's also now trial reels, of course, so depending on your account, you may or may not have access to those, and those can be really fun for A/B testing. They change the rules for how you can A/B test and how similar reels can be to each other all the time, but I found it really effective for trialing which text hook is going to be more effective, or like which starting video is going to grab the most attention. And then based on kind of retention rates on that, I'm able to sort of post the best one on my feed. So that's something else to think about there.
And sorry, what is that called again?
Trial reels.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it is pretty much that A/B testing, kind of similar to you do with email marketing, but just specifically for Instagram. Sounds like interesting. Okay, I know there's a lot out of people on this call that if they're reporting back to like an owner or GM, would love to be able to take that data-driven information and be like, hey, this is the one thing that really worked really well, and we can see it in the numbers, right? Because that's how a lot of brands are making their decisions on what to invest in and what efforts and campaigns make sense. So that's exciting to hear that's out there.
Yeah, and it's not a true, it's not like I was just gonna say, it's not a true A/B test in that you can't control the audience that it gets sent to, but if you're posting it, at least you can sort of see the reception, and it is always to not your followers. It's always to a new audience. So also a way to sort of risklessly test new concepts too.
And I was going to add to that, I think if you're trying to step out of the like less polished type content, more behind the scenes, real raw footage, that would be a great way to do it without it living on your actual feed at first, to see, is this even resonating with people, and before you actually post it. Yeah.
I love a slow to start. We all need it, right? Just a quick, make sure this is going to work.
Tiptoe in.
The tiptoe in, and it's that quick pivot and dive in head first, right? So we are exactly 24 minutes in, and it would not be a webinar in Q1 of 2026 if we didn't talk about the elephant in the room, or the unpaid intern, AI. I know we all have a lot to say about this. I'm excited to kind of open up this conversation. What tools and what parts of AI work for you well or help in creating content? And what do you think the creators and marketers out there should avoid when it comes to use of AI in their social media or content strategy? Tannya?
Yeah. So I think the main sort of like takeaway, I would say, is don't let AI replace your storytelling instead of supporting your storytelling, both whether you're on the marketing side for a brand or if you are a creator. So for me, the most effective I've seen it work is if I'm using it for automation type of tools, like if there's mini chat or there's sort of outreach services to brands, that tends to be really effective. So it's a little bit more on the automation side. But also if I have an established idea or direction for types of hooks or types of voiceovers in the story that I want to tell, I can leverage AI to help me refine it and get the right language and sort of come up with different versions and pick and choose. But I never let it just write a draft and then copy paste it into whatever I'm using it for. So I would say it's super powerful in speeding up some of your processes, but definitely never, I don't trust it, and I shouldn't trust it to sort of just take over my job as that storyteller for my brand and for the brands that I work with, for sure.
Raquel, I know you recently had some thoughts on this with like itinerary planning and what chat spits out with regards to Healdsburg and kind of the experience here. How have you used it recently, or things to watch out for?
Yeah, a lot of what I do is recommend where to go, where to eat, where to stay, where to drink in wine destinations. And so that comes solely from my experiences. And a lot of people I have messaging me saying, like, hey, I have an itinerary from ChatGPT. What do you think about it? Or is this the best place to go? That's what ChatGPT told me. And oftentimes it's not. It's incorrect or it's outdated information, or you're going to get the most basic experience, right? Which is fine if maybe it's your first time to Sonoma or to Napa. But if you truly want an insider's point of view or a local's perspective when it comes to going to the best places, to staying at the best hotels, you can't replace that human element. And so I always come from a human first perspective, because that's what people are craving so much today. Yes, we have so much technology and we have help from AI, but more than ever, people are craving a human connection. And so that goes for saying with what you're posting online, with your content, your captions, the information that you're providing. More than ever, consumers can see through this because they're using the tools themselves. So I always advise clients, never allow AI to generate your captions, because today's consumer can read through the BS. Just be human. It's simple as that.
And I think it's going to become even more so, right? Like as AI becomes more used by the masses, it's definitely going to be one of those things where it's okay to use it for a little bit of inspo, but to watch out, because you don't want it to dehumanize all the hard work you put into creating this like beautiful, real, or awesome photography, only to be followed by something that feels very generic and spitballed out there. Erika, how do you use it? What's worked for you?
I mean, I use it kind of as a soundboard.
Yeah.
I pretend like she is like my intern, and like you said, I'm paid, of course. Actually, I do pay for mine. And it's more of like it's conversational, very never copy and paste. A lot of the time, actually fine. I'm like, that doesn't even, anyway. So just as a soundboard, I don't let it replace anything. Maybe like a shot list idea if we're doing a big photo shoot and we just need some more ideas. And funny story, I was in LA and I had my car, and my husband booked my hotel room. And he says, you have valet, it's part of it. So I get to the desk, I check in, my car is just parked, randomly downtown. I'm like, and I have valet. And she's like, we don't have valet here. I'm like, well, my husband said you did. I'm like on the phone with him. He's like, oh, well, ChatGPT said they had valet. I'm like, don't listen to ChatGPT. I'm here in downtown. Don't do that again. I mean, lesson learned from him. I had to pay for valet, in the end, but I just told him, you have to stop doing this.
Sometimes it's like that bad best friend that we all had in high school who keeps just telling us what we want to hear.
Yes.
Instead of what we need to hear.
Yeah, it was a good lesson learned though. And I think kind of to Raquel's, what she mentioned with itineraries, people are going to be like, oh, yeah, that was fun. I got a quick itinerary, but gosh, what a dud of a weekend. That wine tasting wasn't as good as I thought it would be. And the restaurant didn't have the happy hour it mentioned. So I think people eventually will realize that they like having kind of humans in their life and getting advice from real people.
A good example of that is, so in San Francisco, there is obviously the Golden Gate Bridge and there's Golden Gate Park. And sometimes the large language learning models think that Golden Gate Park is next to Golden Gate Bridge, which it is not. It is a distance away. So if the itinerary tells you to visit Golden Gate Park and then walk to the bridge, I would not advise for it, because you're going to be climbing over several hills and be very unhappy. So it's just stuff like that where it's not necessarily a fact checker, and it doesn't really know. It's just generating based off of the World Wide Web kind of knowledge, but it's not necessarily curating it for you. It doesn't know actually what it's talking about all the time. So I would definitely not rely on it like that.
Yeah, keeping it human, using it as a resource, but then doing your own gut check, I think, is definitely super important right now. So shifting gears for last question, and then we'll kind of jump into a lightning round and get with our audience on some questions. There's no perfect science when it comes to content creation, social media, the marketing. Like I mentioned at the beginning of this conversation, it feels like almost daily there's something new, some new trend, some new way of making sure that your message and your brand get out there with the use of social media. How do each of you kind of think about a new project, get yourself organized? Is there a framework you use? You got 3 steps, 5 steps, no steps? What things work, what don't, in terms of just making sure that you get what you need or the final product for a brand or partner that you're working with? Tannya, maybe we can jump in.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely start with establishing goals and sort of what is if I'm working with a brand on a specific campaign, what is the goal of the campaign? Are they trying to educate their audience? Are they trying to raise awareness and blast out content, as far and wide as possible, let's say for a new launch? What is the goal? Because that does change the type of format that I would be suggesting or recommending for the partnership. So once we sort of are established with that, I also want to get a sense of what is the direction that they're trying to lean on for, let's say, my audience, or if this is like a video that I'm producing just for their audience, what specific sort of group of their audience am I talking to? So there's the goals piece, there's the positioning and sort of who I'm talking to piece. And then once we sort of have that all in place, then we start talking about, okay, what is the type of content that the brand might be looking for, that and sort of perspectives, and also the type that if it's a partnership that is being posted on my platform, what are sort of different content types that would appeal to my audience. So planning out the content piece, and then you start thinking about scouting and shooting, and then content production and editing and afterwards. But that would be the sort of the pre-work, is a lot of that planning, making sure you're on the same page, you know who you're talking to, and that you can deliver something that actually is effective and has good ROI for the client.
Nice. Erika, do you have a magic formula that's worked for your brands, one of your brands?
Well, so not, with smaller companies, you usually don't have necessarily marketing. I've always been in startup mode. So i.e. there's not many of us. And so I'd say we normally would just do, if we were doing something in-house, maybe not with a content creator, mainly just kind of working with our toolkit that we have. And it would be anything from organizing shot lists, what kind of messaging do we want to have, knowing, let's say what's our editing style. Every brand's a little bit different that we work with, but kind of to what Tannya said, but more if we're just doing something in-house.
How about you? Is that the sirens coming to say?
Coming to me.
Right, but what works with your kind of staying organized, or if you could, if you were talking to somebody who was getting into this space, what framework or questions do you think need to be answered before you just dive in?
I certainly don't have a magic framework. Most times I'm just as surprised as I am when I see that the reel is doing well, because in today's world, you never know what Instagram's going to do. But I would say before I post anything, in addition to what Tannya said, outlining your goals, what outcome do you want? What narrative do you want? Before I post anything, even once I finish creating a video or a carousel, I ask myself before I hit post, does this fulfill either of these 3 things? 1, is it valuable? 2, is it entertaining? Or 3, does it further develop my connection with my audience? And if it doesn't check off one of those boxes, I'm going back to the drawing board or fixing something within the content or not posting it at all. And so doing that has helped, rather than just blindly posting and hoping that it does well. So at least I'm asking myself, is this fulfilling one of these 3 things? And giving somebody a reason to care or want to watch my content or interact with it. And then I would also say the other thing, the lens that I look through content is this highly shareable? is what I'm always asking myself. If I saw this, would I want to save it or send it to a friend? And so with that is, what really helps is developing some sort of hook. So rather than here's the best hotel, 5 best hotels in Healdsburg, rather than that, maybe you say, you won't believe what this downtown Healdsburg hotel offers you at check-in. Something where it's like, oh, okay, now I want to watch that to see what they offer. So is there a way that you can hook the viewer rather than, just a normal tagline? Hook them in some way where you're telling a story or sharing something that they can't simply find themselves through AI or through a basic article, where it's like something that's a little bit more special or gives them a reason to want to stay at a property outside of it just being beautiful.
I love that. You actually just did a nice pivot into one of my lightning round questions, which is there anything in particular, quick answers, that you guys think or have seen work so well when it comes to telling the story behind a hotel or a destination, but often gets overlooked or missed and not talked about enough, but resonates well with your audience?
Often.
Besides the valet story, Erika. Besides valet parking.
Has anyone driven in LA recently?
Actually, yeah, that is a good hook. You're right. I think we talked about this a little bit too on the prep call, where, it's not necessarily about the brand or the swag or the logos, but it's the human pieces of it, right?
Yeah, it's those like micro moments, I feel like.
I think what's worked for me when it comes to hotel content is, again, like, there's so many beautiful hotels, but how does it make you feel? So if you can show the feeling of, sitting in a bathtub with champagne, and the view that you're looking out to of vineyards, this massive, glass window, that evokes some sort of feeling where maybe somebody was on the verge of booking at, say, the Four Seasons, which is something that someone thinks about for quite a long time given the price. But then they see one of our videos and can imagine themselves in that moment, which I think is the special thing about social media, is that you can put yourself in that person in that moment, just as Erika was saying, where it's a bit aspirational and you're like, okay, actually that just moved the needle for me and I'm going to book that because I can see how it would make me feel and that it's actually worth it. Seeing the behind the scenes of like what you actually get for your experience.
Yeah. I think it goes to Erika's word or for her relationship with travel, which is like aspirational, right? You want to showcase what feelings are your guests looking to have? What are they hoping to aspire to? And then showcasing that, yes, you can get what you're aspiring to with our hotel, with what the experiences are going to have here. And that's sort of the feelings that the stories that you're trying to tell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just this morning, I saw a post for the Fairmont in Sonoma, and it was literally this really sweet influencer. She was checking with it was like 3rd generation travel. She was checking with her mom, her spouse, and her kids. And it was literally just like what check-in feels like. And if anybody has ever traveled with that crew, they know by the time you get to the room, it's just like this deep exhale. And somebody started hospitality many, many years ago. Fairmont was just put on this pedestal of like high-end service, 5-star service, very put together. And never in my life did I think I would see a reel of like the background of someone checking in and really the like human side of it. But if Fairmont is investing in it and making sure that people get to see that behind the scenes exhale feeling, that it definitely matters and it's super important. So I think we're all on the right track with that one. We have time for just a couple audience questions. This is one that I'm excited to hear from you guys because you live it. How do you know if a certain influencer, a lot of hotels and GMs and marketing folks on this call get approached by influencers all the time. How do you know if it's going to be worth it, or, they're looking for a free stay or some type of compensation? What are the things that you guys see from your seat that are super important before diving into that partnership?
I can jump in quickly. The very first thing is their audience aligned with the guests that my hotel is hoping to attract or is primarily geared for? So for example, if your hotel is in Mission Bay and has a lot of sports fans that come to the Chase Center and stays there, then you wouldn't necessarily want to work with someone whose focus is more like nature, outdoors, and maybe there's a little bit of travel involved, but it's just sort of not as much of a match. So I think that's the first thing. The other, and this is where you probably need to do a bit more research, is looking at how engaged their audience actually is with their content. Is it just sort of like, you don't see this as often, but sometimes you'll still see a bunch of bots kind of commenting, and it's very sort of empty words. It's like, wow, amazing, or like, would love to go here, but it's sort of, there's not really much substance. Versus, are they inviting discussion and actual interest generation in the audience through comments, through posting interesting, engaging stories, as opposed to just like, I stayed here and then I went here and then this happened. That telling of an itinerary is not as effective as like weaving a story together. So being sort of taking some time to watch what the influencer posts, how their community reacts, I think is really helpful as a first step.
Yeah, I agree.
Agree.
All right, guys. Well, we've made it. We're to 11:45. So excited to have had this conversation with you all. Creator collaborations aren't just about trends, but definitely the human side of things, which I think we all agree with our new AI-empowered world is a breath of fresh air. So thank you to our awesome panelists for joining us today. Thank you to our audience for being a part of this conversation. So glad to have talked with you all, and have a great day. Bye, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.